Hi, my name is Shiloh Lundahl, and I'm a licensed therapist in Arizona. And I've been teaching parenting classes for the last 15 years, and I have 5 kids of my own. Check out this video clip, and I'm going to talk about it afterwards.
Gentle parenting does not produce first-time obedience, and it is one of the most important things that you can have, is the ability to ask your child to do something, and they do it. But gentle parenting, I have to get down, I have to negotiate, I have to talk to you on your level and see if you really feel like it. But that's not life. That's not the way that it's going to work when their teacher says, hey, this is what we're doing. It's not what's going to work when they have a job and the boss will say, hey, I need you to do it this way. It's not how life works. They're not going to get on their level and have a conversation. And so we have to raise our children that when I ask you to do something, you do it, and you do it the first time. I noticed in the parking lot with my granddaughters, who are first-time obedient granddaughters, that I'm able to say, hey, to my 2.5-year-old, put your hand on the car while I get your brother out of the car, because we're in a busy parking lot. And she does. She listens to me. I'm still watching, because I'm going to be careful, right? And then I watched just a few days ago in the parking lot that this mom, right, her 4-year-old took off running throughout the parking lot. Cars are going all over. She's got to chase him. He's all over the place. And then she gets down on his level, and she's like, okay, now what was wrong with your behavior? What could you do differently? I can tell you what you can do differently is you can listen to me the first time. You could have been killed. We don't realize that in the junior, higher years, I have to be able to say, stop. You're not hanging out with those friends, and be able to be confident that my children listen to me, obey, because they can destroy their life because they were not raised to first-time obedience. That's what I expect, and that's what I get.
So let's talk about that last video. First, I want you to know that there are some things that I agree with regard to that video, and there's some things that I really don't agree with. Let's start with what I agree with. The example that he gave of a kid running through the parking lot and that parent that got down on that child's level to talk with him about why that was a bad choice and what the kid can do better and things like that. I absolutely agree that that is not very wise. This is how you would handle a situation where your kid were to take off and they're running through the parking lot. You would go and you would run after your kid and you would grab your kid and you lift them up and you'd say, no, that is definitely not okay. You do not run away from me in a parking lot. And then you'd put them in their car seat and then you'd drive them home. I'm going to explain what you would do once you get home with that child. But that is how you would respond in the moment if your child were to run away from you in the parking lot. You wouldn't sit down with them and say, okay, why is that a bad choice? No, you don't have to do that. That is not helpful. I agree that you do not want to condition your child to believe that this world is very gentle and is not going to hurt your child. And if your child doesn't like what's going on, then they can just pout or be sad and angry, and that the whole world will change to meet their demands or to meet their emotions. Because that's not what usually happens. Life is not gentle. You're probably not going to have a boss that's going to sit down with you and ask you, how do you feel about the work that you're doing? And if you do have a boss like that, the boss is probably just trying to assess whether they should fire you or not, because you just may not fit the job that they have outlined for you. So I agree that you do not want to get your kids accustomed to believing that this world is a gentle place that will alter in order to fit what your kid needs, because I just haven't seen that happen. And I don't think you should try to get your kids used to an imaginary world. Now let's talk about the things that I don't agree with. First, he talks about how first-time obedience is the most important thing. And I absolutely disagree with that. Because if you get your kids conditioned to listening and obeying you the first time without ever thinking about, well, is this the right thing or is this not the right thing, then what you're doing is you're conditioning them to listen to voices outside of themselves, tell them what to do, and then just to go and follow those voices without thinking for themselves. This would work really well if you are at war, because when it comes time to war, you don't want to have to think through the situation. You want to just respond out of life or death in order to survive. So it's very helpful if you want to condition someone into survival. However, we are not at a time of war. We're in families. We're living our day-to-day lives, and hopefully we're not living it as if it's a war. So when you're not at war, what's important is having good judgment. Kids are likely going to make lots and lots of mistakes. And there are two kinds of mistakes. There are affordable mistakes and unaffordable mistakes. Running through a parking lot as a 2 or 3-year-old is an unaffordable mistake because obviously you can get hit and you could die. So the mistake is too big in order to allow your kid to experiment with it. However, there are a lot of other mistakes that are affordable that your kids will try and your kids will find out, oh, that wasn't a very good idea. And you want your kids to do that. You want your kids to learn from their mistakes and to develop good judgment. So what would you do after you brought your kid home from running in the parking lot? You would set up a learning opportunity. So the next day you could say to your child, hey bud, wouldn't it be good to go get some treats? Would you like to go get some treats? Kid's thinking, yeah, well, that's great. Let's go to the store and let's get some treats. Oh, wait a second. Ooh, Oh, I want to get a treat, but I'm nervous. I'm a little bit concerned about what happened last time. When you do this to a kid, all of a sudden there's desire because, yeah, I want a treat. And then you brought in some drama towards like, ooh, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. So the kid's learning is heightened because they want to understand what's going on. There's curiosity with intrigue and a possibility of a reward. So there's all of the aspects of attention right there. Say, I'm concerned that if I take you to the store, you're just going to start running in the parking lot again like last time. Oh, and I don't know if that's very safe because little kids, if they're running in the parking lot, a lot of times cars can't see them because they're lower than the front of the car. And so it does put them at risk of getting hit and getting really, really hurt. So I don't know. I don't know if we can do that. Now the child wants to get the treat. So the child's going to say, well, please, can we go get a treat? I don't know. What can you do that can show me that you know how to listen and follow my instructions when it comes to the parking lot? What do you think you can do? Oh, I'll stay right by you. I'll be right by you. I don't know. I'll tell you what, let's do some practicing. So I'm going to have you come to the parking lot with me, and you and I are going to practice walking together up and down the aisles of the parking lot so that I know that you know how to follow me when we're in a parking lot. The child says, okay, I'll do it. So now you go to the parking lot and you hold your child's hand. You're going up and down the different aisles of the parking lot until you go inside. You do it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So what you're doing is you're having the kid actually practice the behavior that you want the child to see. And the practicing technique is probably one of the most effective techniques when it comes to parenting. Now let's talk about the example that he brought up with regard to kids in junior high. I've been teaching parenting classes for like 15 years, and I've taught thousands and thousands of parents. And as a therapist, I've met with thousands of families and talked with them about these types of situations. And I'll tell you what, having a parent tell a child, you're not going to hang out with that kid, that is a bad kid, and I don't want you hanging out with him, it's not very realistic for a lot of kids. It may be realistic for kids that just want to be obedient, but for most kids, they're probably not going to want to follow that because they like the kid and now they feel that you're being judgmental. And if that's how you handle them when they're in junior high or high school, you're probably going to get a lot of pushback, or whether it's overt disobedience or if it's hidden disobedience, you're probably going to have kids that go behind your back to do what they want anyway. So I would definitely encourage you to not handle it that way. So rather than handling it that way, here's something that you may say to your kids. Hey, bud, I've been noticing that you've been hanging out with, let's call the kid Joey, with Joey a lot lately, and I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about that. I'm a little bit concerned because I've heard from other kids and parents that Joey's been suspended a couple of times for vaping in the bathrooms, and he's not doing very good when it comes to grades, and I've heard him talk, and he swears quite a bit. And because I know how important friends are and how big of an influence friends can be on people's lives, I'm hoping that you can have a lot bigger influence on him than he may have on you. Do you have like a really good group of friends that are doing well in school, that aren't swearing, that don't vape, that might be able to bring Joey in, under their wing and kind of help him feel included and loved so that he may pick up on some of those behaviors rather than, you or other kids picking up on some of the behaviors that he has? So rather than just telling your child what your child's going to do or not do when it comes to friends, because really that's outside of your control, And when you try to control things outside of your control, it usually just lowers the respect in the relationship and the kid develops resentment. So I would encourage you to not try to control the things that you can't control. And by the way, it doesn't really work very well because a lot of times kids will either just secretively try to go behind your back and do what they want, or they just feel controlled. So rather than that, you don't try to control the things you can't control. And in this situation, you can't really control friends. But what you can do is you can put some ideas in your child's mind that says, hey, you may want to look out for this, you may want to look out for that. So when the child's in those types of situations and the child starts seeing those behaviors happen, the child can think, you know what? This may not be a good environment for me to be in. And when it comes from the child rather than you, it's much more powerful. Granted, there are some occasions where a parent may need to step in because something has gotten way out of hand. And I understand that. There are situations where maybe that parent-child relationship is really strained, or maybe there's a divorce and there's like split messages that the kid's receiving, and the kid is just really kind of spiraling in a situation that's not good. There may be a time where a parent may need to remove a child from an environment because those things are happening. But for the most part, that is pretty much the exception. And to allow the child to think through things and to have good judgment is very, very important so that the child learns to think for themselves and develop good judgment. So thanks for watching this video. Hopefully this reaction video was helpful for you. And if you liked it, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be putting out a lot of parenting tips here in the near future. And also, if you consider taking some parenting classes, we do teach some parenting classes, both in person if you're in Arizona, but then also online. And so it's really helpful if you want to go and learn some tips that can really help you with your kids. Additionally, if you do have kids that you're really concerned about or that you're struggling with, and you do want to seek out some therapy services, I do provide that to individuals in the state of Arizona. So you can reach out to me and I'd be happy to work with you and your family. So again, hopefully this video was helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.